Hi everyone, this is Joe. Welcome to Making Time for Health, and this is a tutorial on how to use tabs in the Stuff List e-tool. So you'll see for this tutorial I'm using the file Stuff List e-tool tabs sample, which I will put in the Making Time for Health Dropbox if you want to take a look at it. The version of the Stuff List I'm using is the version that doesn't have the yes and no columns exclusively. So you see from stuff we move straight into projects or next actions, or into trash, someday maybe, or reference. If you're comfortable with the e-tools list you've been using for weeks 1 and 2 and you want to keep having the two-step organizing, feel free to use those. But if you're getting really comfortable with the program, you might find that you're doing that first step of deciding yes and no in your head already, and you're ready to move into one of these columns. So it might be a good idea at this point to remove those columns or to use the new Stuff List e-tool that is now available in Dropbox. So when we're working with tabs are a great tool for working with more complex projects. So for you, that might be a final paper or a group project for a class, or even if you're organizing an event for a student group, or you have a personal event or family gathering that you have to organize, several major steps around. Using tabs are a great way to put all of that information in one place, and then also to add more information such as due dates, reoccurring activities, and things like that. So here I'm going to give you an example of a project that I'm working on right now, and then I'll also show you how I use tabs in my actual stuff list. Here you see I have several things in my stuff list, and you'll notice that each of them start with the name HP Well. So that's just a short abbreviation for a project I'm working on, which is called the HP Wellness Game. And you see there's several things that I have to do in order to get this project up and running. Now, if this was the only thing I was doing, this would be great because, this isn't too much to work with, and I could easily put these different pieces in a column. Now, what happens is that when I couple this with all the other things I'm working on, it's easy for these different pieces to get lost in the shuffle, which is when we use a tab. So in order to create a tab, you'll go down to the bottom bar and you'll see that we're working on the Stuff Overview worksheet. But to create a tab, you'll click this plus sign if you're working on a Mac. Now, if you're working on a PC, it'll look a little bit different, but you'll still see a mini tab like this that you could click, and you see a new tab is created. Now, this new tab here says Sheet 1. What I'm going to do is double click on it, and once you double click on it, you can actually edit it. So I'm going to change the name of this tab to HP Well. And so now I'm going to go back to my stuff list. And in our tabs, we want 3 columns to start out with. And those 3 columns are the stuff column, the projects, and the next action. So I'm going to copy and paste that. And now I'm going to go to the HP Well tab. And since this is highlighted, I'm going to paste that in. And we see I've created 3 tabs. And let me write stuff in here. So now we have 3 tabs to start out with. And now I'm going to go back to my stuff list. And I'm going to take all of these, since they're all related to the HP Wellness Game. I'm going to cut these. And I'm going to put all of these in my stuff list under my tabs. So now I have all the potential projects or actions for this project here in the tab, and I could see only these, and it makes it a little easier to concentrate. And from here I could go ahead and start moving things around. So typing up notes from the meeting is the next action. Working on a poster with Melissa which is one of my coworkers. That's going to take a little bit of work. But the very next thing I need to do is email her to find a time to meet. Calculate goal hours from the meeting. That's a real quick thing. So that's the next action. Remind people of potluck. Actually, before that, I'm going to relabel that plan potluck. And the next action for that would be send a brainstorm email out to my coworkers. Set up constant contact recurring email, another next action. Send out Survey Monkey. Well, actually, I'll make that a project because I have to create survey first. Schedule when to update hours. That's the next action. So you see now I've organized where I have some things that, within this one project, there's actually a few mini projects, and then there's a few next actions. And I can see clearly what needs to be done. Now, the great part about using tabs is that we have some flexibility. And when I brought up due dates, I might want to add an extra column here regarding due dates. I'll just color code that really quickly because I like color coding. So I might make something here for due dates. So maybe I type the notes up by the 16th. Things like that. We could put due dates here. Another thing we could do is add for this project is things like weekly activities. So every week I have to send out an email to staff. Now, when do I have to do that? And here I'll label it day. It's on Mondays. And again, color code this. And if you're wondering how I'm color coding, all I'm doing is I'm highlighting the cells. So to highlight a cell, highlight more than one cell, you click on a cell and then you just drag over to the other cell. And you see as I drag over, it highlights multiple cells. And once you have the cells highlighted, you'll see a paint bucket button and a little arrow nearby. If you click on that arrow, you could choose a different color and you see the cells are now colored in with the color I chose. Now, we have all the information we need for this project in one place and it's easy to work with. But one of the dangers of using tabs is if we put all the information here, but it's no longer on our stuff list, it can easily get lost again. So what we want to do now is look at what are the things that I need to work on next. Well, there's a few things here, but say I just pick two. So here's one of the next actions. I'm going to copy that from that next action list, go back to my stuff list, and put that as a next action. But here's what I'm going to do a little bit differently. So here it still says HP well. I'm going to take that out of my next actions just so it's a little easier to read. But in my project, I'm going to label the project as HP well, because I'm going to label the project here the same as the tab that it came from. And so you see now I took something from this next action list and moved it to this next action list under the project HP well, which is also the tab that the next action came from. So maybe I take something off of here and then I also look at my other information and notice, oh, tomorrow's Monday. One of my weekly activities is to email to staff. So again, that's something I have to do every week. So I'll put email to staff. And as the project, again, I'll put HP well. Now for me, I like to delete things as I get them done, because I actually like my next action list to be something that I don't have to scroll to see. So if I put this here on Monday, by Tuesday when I update, I'm going to erase that. And when next week comes around again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure to check my tab and see, oh, on Mondays, I have to email staff. And at that point, I'll add it back to my list. So one of the keys for using tabs is to make sure that we keep our weekly reviews. Weekly reviews are important to make sure we're cleaning up our stuff list, but also cleaning up all of the tabs that we're working with. And lastly, when creating tabs, the way we want to organize them at the bottom is alphabetically. The reason we want to do this is because prioritizing, so putting the most important thing first and then the next important thing next and so on and so forth, is great because it helps us figure out what's important. But when searching for information, it can be kind of difficult to remember how we prioritized. So when it comes to searching for information, the best way to organize is alphabetically. And that's what we want to do with our tabs. So let me show you my stuff list so you can get an idea of what it might look like when you have more than one tab. I'll scroll a little bit. You see I have multiple tabs. And even for some things, like MTH stands for Making Time for Health, I have several tabs for the same project, just because there's so much information that I needed to break it down a little bit more in order to capture everything. And you see down here, everything is alphabetical. Now, if you didn't create your tabs alphabetically, which most likely you won't, the easiest way to move tabs around is to click down on the tab, and then you can drag it around. And you see that little black arrow? That little black arrow indicates where the tab's going to land when you're finished dragging it. So see, I'm going to move this back up here, and you see that this tab is the next tab after my stuff list. Always keep your stuff list first, but from there on, put your tabs in alphabetical order. Now, sometimes you might want to work directly in your tabs, and I think that's okay, but try to keep that only for times where you've allocated time specifically just to work on that project. So this tab is for a research study I'm working on, the African American Women's Heart Health Study. If I put 1 to 2 hours in my schedule to work on this study, then I would most likely have this open anyways, just to remind myself of what I need to do next. The key is, whenever you're done working with a tab, check to see if there's any next actions that you can move back to your stuff list. Because even though we're working with tabs, we want to make sure at all times we're working from our next actions list. So that's a quick tutorial on creating and using tabs with our Stuff List e-tool.